Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of the FutureSox podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me, as always, is Mr. James Fox. And as draft season is in full swing, tonight we have a special guest in D1Baseball's Burke Granger. How you doing, Burke?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely. It's always, around draft time, at least for, James is a little bit more tapped in on this stuff than I am. And it's always great getting a bunch of different perspectives from, guys who know way more about college baseball and the draft just in general than I do. So thanks for hopping on. How you doing,
Well, the
James?
the
Everything good?
draft, Ian,
Oh,
the
sorry.
draft is a period of optimism where we can think about what's good might come, and there's not a lot of reason for optimism on the big club for the White Sox right now. So it allows us to get excited about what might be. So that's what this part of the year is all about.
Yep, for sure. How you doing, James? Everything good?
Yeah, I'm good. I was just like sending out tweets earlier about my hatred for the Pacers because I grew up in the 90s and then Tyrese Halliburton like just tore his ACL. Am I a bad guy? I don't know, like is it my fault? But
Yes, I'm gonna go yes on that.
yes, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll live with it.
Yeah, I wasn't watching it all. I just was cruising on Twitter real quick, just checking some things, and I see tweets of Halliburton
Yeah.
just laying on
Yeah,
his belly. I was like, oh,
that is an Achilles tear. That's why you don't, I know it's game 7, so this was never going to happen, but like playing with calf strains is not good.
yeah, pretty terrible. Um, so I guess we just kick this stuff off right away. So Burke, what is your opinion on what the strengths and weaknesses of the 2025 draft class?
So just off the top of my head, optically, like when you look at the draft boards that are posted publicly, you can make the argument that the high school class is a strength. Because last year we had like 14 of the top 15 picks were out of the college ranks, and that's not going to happen this year. So, and I say that with the caveat that, I work for D1 Baseball. I go to college baseball games every weekend. So I don't know much about the high school class. But just by default, I can say that, I'm not as keen on this college class, and the high school guys are getting pushed up on mocks and public rankings that I'm seeing. So that's why I would say that they're potentially a strength. And then, another way of saying that is for weaknesses. I think this college class is not as strong as what we've had the last 2 years, especially at the top. There's like Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz and Wyatt Langford from 23. That was the debate leading up to that day, and they're all in the bigs, and in 24 you got Kurtz and Caglioni and Christian Moore are all in the bigs. Those were top 10 picks. And there was like three other position players that I think will be there soon. Um, and you could say, like, I mean, maybe college shortstops, I think, is maybe a little bit of a strength in this one compared to last year, because so last year there were three college shortstops picked in the first round, but JJ Weatherholt and Seaver King and Colin Culpepper, like, none of them played shortstop all the way through their whole collegiate career. Seaver King didn't play at all last year at shortstop because Merrick Houston, one of my guys that I like better, is there. Um, Whereas this year, the shortstops, Merrick Houston has played shortstop his whole career. Aloy has played shortstop his whole career since he was a freshman. And then, Gavin Keelin, in my opinion, is a no doubt shortstop. And then who's Ava Arquette, is the big 6'5", 220-pound shortstop for Oregon State, and he's, in my opinion, a top 10 pick and a potential shortstop. But the bat is what you like for him. So you could say, just, again, optically, that college shortstops, I like them in this class better than last year, because last year was kind of a wonky year with shortstops who didn't play shortstop all the way through their collegiate years getting drafted as shortstops. And then I did a recent check before we hopped on, and all of them are playing shortstop. The guys who got picked as shortstops last year are still playing shortstops. I haven't read scouting reports to see how that's playing out and how they're performing, though.
Yes, I mean, like, usually we see this, right, where, like, there's a lot of talk, right, and then the safe demographic kinda rises to the top where teams just wanna take college bats if they can.
Hmm.
But this year, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, I think a lot of people feel like the top 2 guys are Iva Arquette and then Ike Irish, who probably won't catch, but can hit and will play outfield. Those guys to me just and look, you rank these players, like, for a living, right? So, they seem more similar to me than, to, like, your Cam Smiths and your, you mentioned, Seaver King, like that, those types of guys that usually go in the teens. These two guys might go, in like the top 7 or 8 picks. Is that a fair assessment of this college class?
I'm right with you there. And in my again, it's just my it's all this all stuff is all subjective, and it's my opinion, and I haven't calibrated this with scouting directors at this point in the cycle. But that's my thought is like those two guys I think are considered the top collegiate bats, but I wouldn't put either of them ahead of like Christian Moore from last year who went ninth overall. So somewhere in that next tier. Like Ike Irish hit 390 in the SEC, and that's nothing like that with like 13 jacks. And when I saw him last year in the Cape, um, he was playing catcher specifically, but I was struck by like the lack of physicality, and I'm like, I don't know if that could hold up like 100 games behind home plate. This year, he's been playing more in the outfield. If a team thinks he can catch, then he belongs up there in that top 10 if he can catch and has that track record with the bat. If he's being used as an outfielder, it's less special, but still, it's still a first round talent. And I think he would be in that teens if we're talking about where he would be from last year. Yeah, for sure.
Well, if let's go ahead and say you're Mike Rizzo. Who are you taking number one overall in this draft?
So for me, um, again, with the caveat that I know very little about the high school guys, I take Cade Anderson, the left hander out of LSU. And I didn't fully decide that until maybe last night when he struck out 10 in a complete game shutout in the College World Series finals. But, he's a 6'2 lefty who led the country with 180 strikeouts this year, doesn't walk guys. He was up to 97 with his fastball. That, like, there's not a Paul Skeens or even or a Chase Burns or a Hagen Smith in this class, in my opinion. It's that they're a tier down, just like we're talking about the hitters from last year. Um, but he's still a guy who struck out, more people than anyone in the country. He gets a good whiff rate on his fastball, which is always an attribute that I like. You got to be able to miss bats with your fastball, and everything else feeds off that. And then landing your secondaries for strikes, and he does that. He throws all four of those pitches at any time in the count. For me, the changeup is his best secondary. He's got like a 47% whiff rate on that. Um, I don't, again, I don't think you're drafting him and saying he's a future ace. He's a Paul Skeens on your team. But if you draft him with as a number two, number three upside, I would feel good about that at the number one pick on a draft class that, as we've established, is maybe a little bit down from prior years.
Yeah, I said it to both of you guys earlier. I think the Nationals are interesting because Mike Rizzo's been there so long that he's literally taken every demographic like in the top 10. Like
Right.
he could take Seth Hernandez and I wouldn't be totally stunned, even though it's never happened before where like a prep righty's gone one. I mean, money factors in, they don't have extra picks. So, this will start to come into focus. And both of you guys know, like I'd much rather take a bat than a pitcher that high. And I love prep guys. And I don't know how you don't take Kate Anderson at one. I just,
Right.
like no pitcher safe, right? There's no such thing as a pitching prospect, like all that stuff. But it's a 20-year-old lefty that looks this good, that has like youth on his side still, and already had Tommy John. It doesn't mean he won't have another one, but like that's kind of, you don't really have to worry about that right away.
Hmm.
And if he doesn't go one, he's going to be in the Angels bullpen like in 7 or 8 weeks.
Or whoever the Angels pick will be on their big league club in 7 or 8 weeks, I think.
Well, you kind of let the cat out of the bag with the next question that we were going to go to, but with Arnold and Doyle being the other two top left-handed pitchers. Um, what is your thoughts on how you would tier those three pitchers in the draft?
And yeah, I do think they're pretty close. But as we discussed, I would have Anderson first. And this could be a recency thing, but I went and covered the Knoxville regional a couple weeks ago in Tennessee, and Liam Doyle came out and he started on Friday and struck out 10 or 11, and then came back on Monday, got the win out of relief, and it was electric. Like in pitching in a home environment, and the guy is like part psychopath in his DNA, and that's fun. Like, and he's telling the opposing hitters that they're effed because they took a timeout, and whether or not you could argue whether that's good sportsmanship or bad, but whatever. I'm there as a fan first and foremost, and I'm soaking in the environment. It was fun, um, but that's not where you take a guy number one. That's not why you like a guy and you draft him. You do that for what his attributes are, and he struck out 42.6% of the hitters he faced this year. So that's why you write him a big check. Like the fastball has gotten up to 100, so it's more velo than the other two on this list that we're comparing him to. A 40% whiff rate on the fastball. We've talked about how I like establishing the fastball, and that's a pitch he'll throw 65-70% of the time. Like he truly works off that fastball and then mixes in the others 10 to 15% of the time. Um, that workload that he pitched in the regionals might have impacted him in the supers because he had kind of a less than stellar start against Arkansas, which was his second one in up to three. It could be a head thing. It's the second time in up to 3 or 4 weeks that he didn't pitch well against Arkansas, and Tennessee just hasn't played great a bit against them in the last few years. Um, but I think we're talking about guys who can get into a major league bullpen. Like I think Liam Doyle could pitch in the bullpen in a major league team right now for anyone that would want or have the need to rush him and get him up there and get outs at the major league level. I think it's that type of stuff. There is some reliever risk, in my opinion, that more so with the other two guys. Like I think, but I think it would be if that's his floor as a high leverage guy. I'm not too sad about that. You don't want to take a guy who you think is just going to be a reliever if you're taking him second through 10th. In my opinion, you guys are giving me a face. Maybe.
No, not you. We're
That's
looking
the
at our
comment
comments.
here.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're good.
Yeesh.
no, I don't see. I've been doing this long enough that I've seen Carson Fulmer pitch, and I don't get those vibes. But
No,
and then
yeah,
I would have Arnold. I would have Arnold third, and that's not a dig on him. He struck out 17 in a game against Pittsburgh last year. That Pittsburgh's 3 hours from me in Columbus, and it was one. My schedule changes from day to day, hour to hour, and that was one of those games where I was getting ready to go to, and I decided against it, and I've been kicking myself ever since because I would have seen him strike out 17 and got awesome coverage for that game, but I missed it. But whereas the other guys on this list, I mean, Doyle had a couple struggles, but like Arnold had more pedestrian starts than those other two, including some down the stretch. His best pitch is a mid 80 slider, and he throws it like almost 50% of the time. And it's a great pitch, but I get the repertoire for him is only 3 pitches deep. These other guys go 4 pitches deep. That adds a little
yeah.
plus to them in my category. So, um, but the slider's really good. Guys are hitting like 160 against it, so I would throw it a lot too. So no offense intended there, but that's why I would have him third. But I like all three of these guys.
Yeah, it's a true outlier fastball. So anybody that's not really worried about the delivery that thinks that they can develop secondaries, I mean, he's kind of a no-brainer. This is interesting because this happens, I feel like, every year where pre-draft, or like preseason, right? Like October, like we think we know, right? And
Mhm.
we'll get to the righties in a minute, but it was Arnold and Tyler Bremner of UCSB, right? So like were Anderson or Doyle even like on your radar coming into this season? Like as far as look, I know you knew who Kate Anderson was, right? But
Yeah.
as like top 5 guys in this class.
No, and along with on those lines, not until Doyle especially start like he was getting insane numbers of striking out like 80% of the guys he was throwing those first pitching against those first few starts. I obviously knew he had strikeout stuff from his previous two stops at Coastal and Ole Miss. But of these three guys, Arnold was the perceived top arm heading into the year, because of that strong finish last year. Whereas these other two guys were more of the surging in their draft year, compared to an Arnold, Jamie Arnold type of guy.
Yeah, so Bremner, I mean, Bremner, we've obviously seen like had some struggles and then was pretty good, I think, down the stretch. And he was seen as the top college righty for a while, but then I think Kyson Witherspoon overtook him. But now there's another guy in Gage Wood. We kind of talked about him last week a little bit with Tyler Jennings. It was fresh off the no hitter. Can can he challenge Kyson to be the top college righty off the board, or are they both kind of, maybe in that 8 to 20-ish range, I guess?
I think he could challenge him. I don't know if he has the full track record of like a Kyson Witherspoon to get up in that range. There are two other kind of college righties I like and I'll get to, but I think Wood was maybe considered a second rounder until recently. It's his first year as a starter, and he's missed some time, so he hasn't had that kind of full starter's workload and all that track record, that data, and the reps that scouts have seen to say he belongs in that range. But the fastball metrics are pretty great on him too. They're up there with Doyle. Um, but for Wood, I think the other pitches are more average in my book. So I don't have him quite up there with Witherspoon. I think Patrick Forbes of Louisville, and again, this is more my region. So, and I've talked to scouts who have seen him really good, seen him bad. Like when he's on, he's flashed ability to be in this conversation and be the top college righty. And another guy I really like is JB Middleton. I don't know if he's getting as much of the press. I will say, when I saw him earlier in the year against Marshall, and there were only a handful of scouts there, but one of them was Mike Shirley. Now, that could be geographic. Like the times I run into Mike Shirley is because um, it's in my area. He lives in southern Indiana, I think, and it's when the top guys are in town. And I'm sure it's a matter of convenience, and he's doing his due diligence. But with that being said, Middleton was good when I saw him, and um, he's a three pitch guy. All three of those pitches, in my opinion, have a chance to be above average or better. Fastball got up to 98. It averages 94.1. The slider gets up to 91, but it's more effective when it's in that upper 80s range, and it has more sweep to it, and it's a really good changeup. So, and then couple that with when I saw Witherspoon's one of these guys who has like elite fastball velocity. It averaged like 96.4 or something this year. I saw him against Kentucky, it was 95.2, and that might not seem like a lot, but that's enough where it's a little flat. Witherspoon's fastball is a little flat. It doesn't have it seems unfair to say it doesn't have the life of Chase Burns or Paul Skeens, but those are the top righties from the last two drafts, right? Um, so when there's that 1 mile per hour difference against college hitters, like a team like Kentucky, who was in Omaha last year, they made him pay for it. So he wasn't able to establish that fastball and then get to the secondaries to put hitters away. So I didn't see Kyson Witherspoon on his best day. So that might close the gap with those other guys like Middleton and Forbes, who I've seen really good at times. So for me, like all four of those guys would be in a similar tier, based on just what I saw, which is
Yeah.
for most cases it's a one start sample.
Ian, so MLB Pipeline has Middleton, Quick, and Forbes ranked 34, 35, 36. And I feel like any of those guys could go in the 20s to a good team. Just take college righties all the time.
I think so.
Speaking of righties, and this is something that James and I have talked about a lot. Um, so Seth Hernandez is ranked. I think he's ranked number 2 by MLB Pipeline. Is there any shot that any of these college righties go above him just due to the NIL stuff that's been going on for the last couple of years? Do you think?
I think that's another factor just to put in the equation. It's something that scouts or prognosticators didn't have to think about 5 years ago, and now they do. Like I didn't anticipate a guy like Tyler Bell would get to Kentucky last year as a second rounder, and that's a school that's just only recently gotten super competitive and had that type of NIL to get a guy like that to campus and keep him there for 2 years until he's draft eligible again. So those types of things, I haven't heard of those types of things happening with this class yet, but that's where you start to hear those in the weeks leading up to them. The other factor, as you pointed out, like it's the Angels picking second, and I think they'll go college. Um, so yeah, I could see them surprising us and picking whoever they think can get up there quickly, or I really don't have a great feel for what they're going to do, other
Yeah.
than I would say I think they would lean college at two, and so yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see one of these guys get up there if they had that perceived safety due to a longer track record.
Yeah, as far as the right, I mean, I think Kyson Witherspoon could end up going higher than Seth Hernandez, but it would be like one of them goes 7 and one of them goes 8, that sort of thing. I will say, like, full disclosure here, like, I don't expect Seth Hernandez to fall further than 10 just based off of things I know and have heard. Like, I think the White Sox would just take him if he was there, and they'd pay him and figure it out, even if they want to take a hitter. And then the other thing that Burke just brought up about the NIL, and he's obviously covering the college game, and we're not privy necessarily to numbers and what these kids want and how much money they can get elsewhere. But I know it's affected the White Sox. I know that every year I go on a draft call and Mike Shirley is puzzled at some of the asking prices for college guys who can just switch schools or whatever. There, I've heard the White Sox would love to be high school heavy in the middle rounds, and a lot of that has to do with like how much college guys are asking for. Like if high school guys cost a little bit more, I think some teams will opt to just like try to pay a high school guy instead.
Yeah, and it's like scouts can put a different dollar number on someone than an athletic director could. There's value in a 23-year-old college veteran with 800 plate appearances under his belt that's not going to be overwhelmed by the situation, even if he's not a pro prospect. In that, there's NIL value there, whereas you know the dollar sign that you might get on a pro pick is even greater, obviously.
Well, and I don't know how much Tyler Bell got, right, to go there, but like he turned down like 1.8-ish million to go, to turn pro with the Rays. So if you're him, right, if you can split the difference, and I don't know that these numbers are accurate at all. I'm just like, if you could split the difference and get 900K and go to Kentucky for 2 years, well, I mean, yeah, that's probably a better deal, honestly.
Yeah,
You go bet on yourself for two. Like, you don't think you can come back out in 2 years and make the 900K? I think you probably can, which makes
yeah.
some of these fringy high school guys kind of difficult signs, like in the second and third round. Like they used to be um easier to sign because a lot of these guys would just take 2 million bucks, but that's the other end of it. Like they might not anymore.
And the numbers I did hear about Bell, and I won't disclose them because I have no idea if they're true, but they weren't quite that high, but they were in that same ballpark. And to your point, he had a great year. He batted second or first in that lineup, and the bat was kind of he was a glove first guy, and he hit well in SEC play. So like now he's going to enter next year, I assume as a top half of the first round prospect, and potentially make more money than what he was offered last year, in addition to the NIL money that he's gotten over the last 2 years.
James, just to answer this question here, looking for a comp for Seth Hernandez. What you guys would think that.
I mean, I know that Burke hasn't seen him. I haven't seen him in person, obviously, but to me, I mean, it's very similar to your top high school guys that have gone up really, really high. Like I mean, he's in the same tier as Jackson Jobe and some of those other guys that have gone that high. I think like there's a strong argument that he's the best player in this class, but he's a high school righty. So like do with that what you will. A high school righty's never gone one overall. Um, you know what I mean? So I think he probably ends up down 7, 8, 9, probably doesn't get past Cincinnati. But if on draft night he's 3 to the Mariners and we're doing the show, like I'm not going to be surprised at all.
That's fair. So we kind of already touched on the bats in this draft, but one thing that we were kicking around was if Ava Arquette and Ike Irish were in last year's draft, where do you think that they're slotting in? Are they, 10 to 20 range? Or do you think that they could pop up a little bit higher?
Yeah, I think it would be in that 10 to 20 range, which we kind of alluded to, just based on how they would stack up or how I perceive their kind of future value to be compared to last year's class. So I would put them in that range rather than up in the top 10 like it's potential they could get picked this year.
Who's that next tier for you? Like the bats. I know you mentioned Merrick, and there's like a whole host of other guys. I know Aloy is kind of risen his stock a little bit, I feel like. But I think there's a group after those two.
Agreed. I kind of like Brendan Summerhill, the right fielder from Arizona. He's an athletic guy. There's potential he could maybe play center. They had a really good center fielder already there. He played some center in the Cape last year. But a left-handed hitter, smooth, like runs kind of like a gazelle. He's high-waisted and long-legged. And a guy that I could see is like he's a slasher, leadoff hitter type guy who can steal a lot of bases. Devin Taylor's a guy I've always liked from Indiana. When you talk about like consistent track record, like that guy was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year 2 years ago, and it's just gotten better since then, and just stayed very consistent. Like there's not many weeks where you're just like, Devin's not seeing the ball. The stats are always going to be there, and he's the all-time home run leader at a pretty good Indiana program that includes a lot of big leaguers, and he did it in 3 years. Um, the knock on him is it's probably left field only. Like, and if the bat doesn't like it's left field only, and the two tools that you're paying for are the hit tool and the power. So if that doesn't work out, you're kind of out of options. But I think it'll work out. I think he's a tremendous kid who I've been able to cover a lot over the last 3 years. Um, Luke Stevenson, I think the catcher from North Carolina. Again, if you think he can catch, I've only seen him once, and I liked what I saw behind the plate, but I didn't see enough of a sample, I should say, to make the decision on whether or not I think he could play there at the pro level. But I really like the left-handed bat from him, so he's the guy I like. And then Merrick Houston is a guy I like really on both sides of the ball, who I think is like has a case for like being a top 10 player in this class.
Interesting. So one thing that with the White Sox, one thing that they are looking for is natural power. And one of the guys that has been talked about by White Sox fans for the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, and uh, this season hasn't done a whole lot to solidify his spot in the draft. But Jace Lavigne, what is your take on his season, and where do you think he's going to end up?
The first thing that stands out for him, and even as a high school guy, I saw him kind of on the showcase circuit, is like the big physicality. Like he's a big 6'6", 230 pound dude, and the power really plays. Like it's at least plus power, potentially double plus power. Um, he entered as the top guy or one of the top guys in this cycle after hitting 29 home runs last year, and he got off to a slow start, and then probably not coincidental, like the Aggies got off to a slow start. They were the preseason number one, and they got off to a slow start. Jace wasn't. He was hitting like 230 a month into the season. Still wound up with like 18 home runs and a 1,000 OPS, but it was his worst of his three collegiate seasons. He played center field this year. He's probably a corner guy at the next level. I think he could play right field. He's got the arm for it. Um, but yeah, like he's a guy that I wouldn't be shocked if he goes eighth or 28th on it. Like I don't know what the evaluators are going to make of the slow start, and like there his worst tool is the hit tool. Like is it going to be like someone who's going to hit 220 and with 30 home run power, or can he get it up to 250 with some on base skills by drawing walks, and like that makes him way more serviceable as an everyday guy, right? So um I I would kind of bet on a guy who has that pedigree and entered the cycle, so like everyone would have taken him early last year if he was eligible, right? Like, so that's not nothing. Was it just a rough start when all the eyes are on you and the pressure's on, like I wouldn't ding a guy too much for that by bumping him to the second round. Like he's still a first round talent in my opinion. So that's kind of my long-winded rambling answer of being like, I still don't know what I would do with him, but I'd bet on the talent. Is where I would lean.
Yeah, it's just a lot, it's not even the strikeouts, it's like the in zone whiff and all. It's just, yeah, I mean, but if teams think that it's like an approach issue, right? I feel like they won't necessarily have a problem. We've been joking with guests, like I kind of feel like he's a Baltimore Oriole. Like
Yeah,
I don't know that he gets to 19, but if he does, um,
like
I
that
just
Colton Cowser type.
yeah, yeah, I just they just take these. Who did they take out of? They took Vance Honeycutt last year. I mean,
Yeah,
like, and Honeycutt's the better defender in center, but it's just a million strikeouts and it never translates. But yeah, they took Judd Fabian, right? So they're just not really
concerned.
afraid of this type of thing. I got to go back for a second, just on Merrick Houston. I know the White Sox are big fans of Merrick Houston. He's close to Winston Salem, so I think they see him a lot. Like, how concerning, I guess, is it that like most of his home run production came early in the year, not in SEC play, and then obviously like a lot of it was at Wake Forest, like at their ballpark. And
And
look,
it is a
he's a
yeah,
stud defender. He's gonna play shortstop, right? So like if he hits
yeah.
it all, he's probably a big leaguer. But just how much impact is it really? I know you're probably on the high end of that.
I am. Now, it helps that again, he hit 3 home runs in the Knoxville regional, but Lindsey Nelson Stadium is pretty similar to the Couch in terms of being a bandbox, an offensive ballpark. Um, but it was also in regional play against good pitchers, so I give that some credit. The thing about Merrick Houston that I like that maybe alleviates some of that for me is like I liked him as a freshman when he started. Like he's a glove. You pointed it out. He's a glove first guy. He batted ninth and played shortstop in 23 on that runner up team for Wake Forest. And I liked him then because you could tell the skills translated to the next level at shortstop. But yeah, he hit 220 with 4 home runs, and then this year it's like 15 home runs, 20 stolen bases, and a no doubt shortstop. So like that's why I like him so much. You know, I don't think it projects out as like plus power at the next level, but it alleviates some of that concern that you saw is like, is this going to be a guy with an anemic bat that just has no punch to it? And I don't think that anymore. That you maybe thought after his freshman year, like he's gotten progressively better every year. So maybe you're saying, you know, that to me takes out that home ballpark factor of saying as an offensive player, I like his ability to improve and get better and get him in a pro system and hope that can continue to develop.
So I mean, it seems like we know like you like him better than Vahiva Aloy and Gavin Keelin, but you think all three of those guys are shortstops and stay there?
I do. Keelan is. I like Keelan more than Aloy for his ability to stay at shortstop. And even though Aloy played there his whole career, like Keelan started out playing, I think, second base at Louisville in favor of in deference to Christian Knapchick. But even then, like Dan McDowell at Louisville was like, Gavin Keelan's a legit, no doubt shortstop. So when he went to Tennessee and not knowing as much about Dean Curley as I know now, like I thought Keelan would be the starting shortstop for Tennessee all year long. It ended up being Dean Curley, and he was the starting shortstop on their national championship team last year. So I can't fault them too much. But uh, Keelan, Curley had some throwing issues, and Keelan ended up moving there. And Keelan, in my opinion, he's got the range, he's got the arm. Like it was fun seeing him in the same regional as Merrick Houston because I'm able to compare those two in real time. I like Houston better as a defender, but I think Keelan can play there long term. And Gavin Keelan, like let's not forget, like first month of the season, he was like a Golden Spike. He looked like a Golden Spikes Award winner. Then he got hurt a little bit. He came back, and he wasn't uh, he didn't get up to his he didn't return to form. It took him a while to like build up to playing at that level that he was playing the first month of the season, but he was by the end of the year. Like he was one of their top 2 or 3 bats for Tennessee and had a really good regional when I saw him. So I like him as my second best shortstop in that trio. And then Aloy, like, feels weird saying that Aloy, the Golden Spikes winner and the SEC Player of the Year, I like him third best. Like he's a fantastic player, had a fantastic season, 19 home runs or 19 doubles, 21 home runs, 1100 OPS. Again, played shortstop his whole career. And it might be recency bias, but that you guys see that play the other night where but the potential game-ending double play, and he gets the lead runner at third base, and then they go on to lose the game. And some of that's it's not all on him for sure, but that's still a puzzling, head-scratching play that you see from a guy who's a Golden Spikes Award winner. Like, um, but that's not why I wouldn't pick him above these other guys. To me, it's just he doesn't have that standout tool like those other guys do, in my opinion. He's pretty consistent across the board from a tool perspective, but I don't know if there's that one thing that you can say. Like Merrick Houston, I think is a plus defender. Gavin Keelin, you know, is probably above average hitter, above average power, above average defender. Like, whereas Aloy, I would put like 50s on a lot of those tools, like, and that's not nothing. That's not a that's not a dig at him. Like, it's just I just don't think he's as tools. He doesn't have that standout tool like those other two guys do.
So Ian, Baseball America, I think it was Carlos, like reported, like in a mock draft. I think he had the Sox taking Billy Carlson, but he did say that they rolled heavy at that Tennessee regional, whatever that means, right? I don't know if like Getz was there or whatever, and they know Keelan well because he was a Wisconsin prep. I guess for Keelan, and then even for Andrew Fischer too. So Uncle Ted asked about Andrew Fischer. So did
I
you
like
see
Andrew Fisher.
any of the White Sox people there, Burke? And also like touch on Andrew Fischer, please.
For your first question, if I saw the the regionals is weird for me. Like, for the whole season, I go to these games and I don't even go up to the press box. Like, my preference is to bundle up in Midwest weather with my long underwear and sit with the scouts and talk to the scouts. Um, for the regionals, I don't always have that option because they're packed SEC stadiums. Like, I can go to the University of Michigan or Ohio State and sit anywhere I want. Like, that's not an option I have when I go to Lindsey Nelson Stadium. So I had to sit up in the press box. So I wasn't able to take notes of who the scouts were watching them. Um, but like Andrew Fisher is a guy that was the first time I saw him, and I was struck by the guy. Like, I did talk. I take that back. I talked to one scout about Andrew Fisher, who comped him to former White Sox Nick Swisher but that was more in terms of his gregarious personality. Like, I don't know what was showing on TV, but like at commercial breaks, that guy was basically like a cheerleader for the stands, and which rubs the opposing team the wrong way, and then he'll go and hit a home run. Like, he's got moxie, he's got swagger. Like, I like that dude, and he's a pretty good two strike hitter. Someone can look up the two strike. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my look, he was a good two strike hitter. Like, the guy swings out of his shoes on every pitch. Like, I was impressed with how good of a two strike hitter, with the fact that like he takes big boy daddy hacks with two strikes. Like, he does not let up. He he's very competitive on a pitch to pitch basis. I love those guys who just grind out at bats, and take it personally when they strike out. Like, he's a guy I would want on my team, and he's got real power that I think will play outside of ballparks other than just Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Um, but yeah, it was the two strike swings is what struck me most about him. Like, him swinging out of his heels with two strikes and still looking to do damage. And I didn't see him swinging through like middle fastballs while he was doing that.
Ian, do you want to ask about? I think Jack asked about Ethan Conrad. Or he didn't ask. He said Ethan Conrad is being slept on.
Potentially, I saw him in the Cape. Did he come from Marist? Am I right about that? It was Marist to Wake Forest. Saw him on the Cape, and he was getting a lot of buzz as a potential first rounder. And I liked what I saw in the Cape. It's just, when you're evaluating a guy in the Cape, your head's on a swivel. When you're out evaluating players on the Cape, your head's on a swivel. There's a lot of guys. I'm not fully digging in and like trying to evaluate where this guy is going to be next July during the draft. You like to just have that be your first look. You're taking notes, and you're like, I see this guy. Here's what he's doing in the Cape again, and with wood bats against good pitchers. here's what I would like to see him do in the spring. And then he was doing well in the spring. And then once that goes down with an injury. So then it's like, you got to go back and recall like what you thought of him in the summer, when you weren't really trying to fully hone in on the guy. But like, I think if he didn't get hurt, he would be a first round pick because of like, there is that perceived safety in a guy who's hitting so well at at the Power Five level, like he was this past year. And with the track record of what he did in the summer with wood bats, like that's always a big factor for evaluators. Had he not gotten hurt, I think he's in kind of that middle of the first round range. So I think it's a good point to say he's being slept on because of the injury. Like there's not that recent stuff that people can see, but uh, on the other side of that coin, like these are all that's also when people start, they dig in so much on these players that they'll find warts that they might not have otherwise seen. And you're not going to see those, I guess, with Conrad, because there's not that recent performance you can try to pick apart. You can look back at how well he performed over the summer, which was great, and think optimistically about how that's going to project out. So I like him. I would put him in that kind of first round range. Um, seeing how things shake out. The same guy also that asked about Andrew Fisher talked about Boston Smith, who's a catcher at Wright State. Um, and I've seen Mike Shirley at Wright State games, but he lives like 2 hours away from there. So, but right? He's a guy who just in the month of May, like he was my preseason player of the year pick in the Horizon League. And then his numbers, like until May, were kind of pedestrian. Then he legit hit like 19 home runs in the month of May, broke their school's record for home runs, hit a couple against Vanderbilt in the Nashville Regional. Like the Duke can hit. He was a shortstop last year for Wright State. Now he's a catcher. I kind of like that profile. Like that's Dylan Dingler. Like you're athletic enough to play shortstop or other places, and then you get behind the plate. You know, he's not a Dylan Dingler. He's not going to throw out guys with a 1.85 pop time. But I like that athleticism translating behind the plate in terms of blocking balls and stuff like that. He's a good player, good left-handed stick. He's a guy that I like, and I'm excited to see. They put in their third round in the comment, and I would love to see him get in that range.
There was a question earlier about Billy Carlson, whether it's possible that he slides to 10. You have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's I
Things on
think it's
that.
yeah, I think it's possible for sure. I mean, so I think he's like the best defensive shortstop in the prep class. I'd have a tough time thinking that he's better than Merrick Houston defensively. So saying that he's the best defender in the class might be a little bit tough when Houston's been doing it at Wake Forest for 3 years. But he's also 19, which will deter some clubs, right? And like, how many of these guys are gonna go and like looking at it from the White Sox lens, right? And we're gonna get into this in a second with Burke. Like, I think they'd love one of these prep guys, but I mean, like, are Holiday and Willits and JoJo Parker and Carlson all going to be gone by 10? Like, if they are, somebody's on the board that you're not expecting, right? So I do think of those guys, it's why we keep hearing JoJo Parker and Billy Carlson, because I think one of them is probably there, you know what I mean? Like, right now, there's 15 players that are going to be off the board when the White Sox pick at 10 somehow, right? It's just somebody will be there. Yeah, Billy Carlson could be that guy, and I think the White Sox would be very happy with that.
Well, speaking of the White Sox and pick number 10, your thoughts on that, Burke, and who would you take?
Again, with the caveat of not being terribly familiar with the high school guys, as a White Sox fan, a suffering White Sox fan, I like them going high school. I like the idea of them going high school if they find the fit there. But in talking about the college guys that I like that could be available in that range, if Liam Doyle makes it there, I think that would be the end of his slide, or I would hope it would be because I would want them to pick him. And then Merrick Houston, I think that might be the top of his range. I really don't know, but like I would like him at 10. Like I like that guy that much that I would draft him at 10 because of what he can do on both sides of the ball. I love guys when I see him in college, and there's just not a question whether or not he can play shortstop at the next level. And for me, that's him. And then with the progression that I've seen offensively, like that just makes him more appealing to me. But you
Yeah.
know, I've had him. I've lost my ability to be unbiased with Merrick Houston. I have too much affection for him that it was love at first sight when I saw him, and then he's done nothing to dispel that.
Do you think Brandon Summerhill's a definite corner? Or I mean, obviously, like you'll run him out at center, right? But I just feel like the offensive profile, if he's in center, right, and it's above average defense, like that really could boost him quite a bit. But if it's right field, I don't know, like the power potential, I kind of question a little bit.
The power the power would be atypical for right field for sure. Um, but right field is harder to play than left field. He's a good enough defender to play right field over left field. Like he's not just saying you got to stick him in left field and then he's a 10 to 15 home run guy there. Like I would love to see more. I saw him play a little bit in center last year. Actually, in the Cape Cod All-Star game, he he was playing center field and ran face first into the wall, and they had to bring out an ambulance. Like they stopped play for like 20 minutes to get him out of there. It was scary. Um, but so that's like you could say, hey, love the hard nosed attitude, or you could say, is the spatial awareness concerning that he's running face first, full speed into the wall? Like I haven't seen truly just enough reps there, but like seeing him run and seeing him take fly balls in right field, he looks good, getting good reads and stuff. So like, and he's athletic enough to just say, get in center and react. But yeah, I would be concerned about if he can't play center and you have to put him at right field because he's not going to give you there's not a shot to me, in my opinion, that 35 home runs is in his range of outcomes.
And then have you seen Cam Canarella in person?
No, I haven't.
So with him, like that's it. Like he's just another one that. So he was supposed to be top 10 coming into the year. He had shoulder surgery. He struggled because of it, but he's so dynamic. I feel like the similarities between him and Mike Sirota last year to me, and now of course Mike Sirota's like well on his way to being a top 75 prospect in baseball because he's with the Dodgers, right? I just
Yeah,
think like a guy like Canarella, if the league lets him fall to like the Dodgers or something, it's just gonna look really stupid because like he very clearly played hurt. Like just on my TV looks and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like
yeah,
like, oh, he can't throw. It's like, well, can he not throw or did he have shoulder surgery and now he's like playing and he probably shouldn't be playing? So he's
yeah,
one of the guys in the college class to me that's fascinating that I think could go in the second, and we're all 2 years from now like, oh yeah, he probably should have been in the top 15 like some of these other guys did.
yeah, yeah. I'm with you. Like there's always guys in the cycle, and the Dodgers always get one of them. But it's similar to my logic, kind of on Jace Lavigne. Like these guys were considered top guys for a reason. And if you're not seeing a troubling uh, reason to pinpoint that fall off on, then I would still bet on the talent and just chalk up uh, a less than stellar performance on playing through an injury or flukes happen too on your draft years. So I wouldn't let him slide too much if he was at once considered to be one of the top outfielders in the class.
Yeah, with the way things are this year, because there's just no guys that you say these guys are definitely heads and shoulders above everybody else. I wouldn't be surprised if guys from the second round from this year end up far outperforming some of the guys in some of the top guys in the first round this year, just because it's not.
Especially if there's a lot of high school position players getting picked because their attrition rate is going to be higher. There's going to be two or three guys that aren't going to hit, and if we knew who they were, then we'd be multimillionaires right now. But like, it's going to happen to a couple of them. And then yeah, we're gonna look at some of those college guys who got picked in the third or fourth round, being like, God, why didn't that guy go in the first? And this high school guy did. But you could cherry pick those in every draft class if you're looking at it retrospectively.
So who are some of your Midwest guys that or some of these guys around here that you've seen this year that are personal favorites of yours that aren't necessarily like first rounders or top 40 guys?
Um, that's a good question. One guy we mentioned, Boston Smith, is a guy that I liked who really came on. Um, there's a D2 arm from Ohio. I got to pull up his name. I want to say it's Logan Allen, but it's not Logan Allen. Gosh, sorry about this, guys.
Oh, you're good. I like the deep cuts, so take
It
your
is a deep
time.
cut. Like, I'm
Well,
going
it's
to
because
be the only
we're
draft.
asking, yeah, we're asking the
I'm going to
D1
be.
baseball guy about D2 guys. So
I know.
that's the problem. Yeah, that's
This is what, like, my bosses get mad when I go rogue and start going to games that are not um, in my wheelhouse. But this is a D2 arm who was throwing 100, and it was like an hour away from me, so I had to
whew,
go. I had to go check it out.
yeah, that's
Hunter Allen, a big right-handed D3 arm who was like up to 100, D2 or D3 arm. I can't remember what Ashland is. Um, but I think he's like probably like a fifth or sixth round talent. Like, and he might be a reliever. But he starts for them. The game I saw, it was like he 6 innings, 1 hit, 6 walks, 6 strikeouts. Like, it's raw. He's got some work to do, but I I I like the potential, I should say, that I would draft him in the fifth, sixth, seventh round, or for all I know, he has a year of eligibility and he goes to an SEC school and we're watching him pitch in the College World Series next year. Um, Another guy, Mitch Voigt, like, that's not too deep, but like in terms of a college position player, he plays second base for Michigan. His first year, he's their third baseman and closer. This is why I love college baseball. He's their third baseman and closer as a freshman. The next year, he's their right fielder and Sunday starter on the mound. He has a little arm thing this year, and the scouts that I had talked to liked him more as a pitcher in his underclassmen years than as a hitter. So he has arm surgery and he's only going to hit this year. So I'm thinking he might be down on my draft list, and he goes out and he every time I'm watching him, he's barreling the baseball. So like, um, he's probably hitting like 700 when I'm in attendance, and he's one of those Wisconsin prep guys. He was pretty highly touted out of that Wisconsin hitters like prep league or prep team. Um, and I think the scouts really like him in my area, so I wouldn't be shocked if he goes higher than what he's showing on like the public boards, like, because he looked really good at second base too, which is shocking. And you talk to Tracy Smith, Michigan's coach, and you're like, candidly, he said, candidly, I could put him at catcher and he'd be my best catcher. He's just that good. Um, so he's a guy that I'm probably higher on than most of the industry too.
interesting. So I mean, I do like a draft notebook here, and in the latest one, I did like a 5 round White Sox mock draft, and I went very prep heavy just based off of like some of the things that I've heard. So I have them with Steele Hall in the first, which I think is kind of like a backup plan to some of these other guys. He's a 17-year-old reclass, out of Alabama, and then I know for a fact like Sean Gamble, he's an Iowa prep kid who transferred and played at IMG. He's been mocked in the first round, but I know the Sox would love if they could get him to 44 somehow. I think that would make a lot of sense for them. And then Yuli Frenzler is a lefty high school kid out of Michigan who scouts have been in to see. But the last two guys who I was going to ask you about, so I've heard them linked to these guys. Nate Snead, I know you've seen like closing for Tennessee. Obviously,
Hmm.
some people feel like he can start potentially at the next level, and then if he can't, then you just like put him right in the bullpen, whatever. But the other guy, Sam Horn out of Missouri, so he's only thrown like 15 innings in college. But so I remember
Hmm.
this was a guy who was like this premium athlete starting pitcher who was like compared to Bubba Chandler all the way through school, like in Georgia as a high schooler. But he went to Missouri to basically play quarterback. Um, and then he blew out and had Tommy John and missed all of 2024. And now he's back pitching for Mizzou. Like my only question there was whether he was signable, and I don't expect you to know that, but just because
Right.
apparently he's competing for the Missouri quarterback job. So,
Hmm.
but that's another name who the White Sox like apparently.
I don't know enough about Horn. with Missouri going. I think they went like 3-24 in the SEC. I didn't get with those 3 wins. I think being against Texas A&M, like, which is shocking because they're the preseason #1. But like, I didn't get to see them. I did see Snead, and I've seen Snead a couple times, and he's one of those guys where you watch him pitch, and you look at like, how is this guy not striking out a hitter an inning even? Like, because and I think I got my answer in a two inning appearance. Like, saw him the first inning, he made it through in like 15 pitches. 7 of them were swings and misses. Like, and to your point, he was missing bats with 4 different pitches. Like, he's got 4 pitches that can play, so he's got a chance to start. And one of those is a fastball that was 101. So like, the dude, like, there's enough stuff that you can like. Um, so I watched that. I'm like, well, what? And then the next inning, he walks the bases loaded, or he walks 3, gives up an infield single on a bunt that he mishandled, and then walks in the winning run. So it's like, I saw both sides of like the good Nate Snead and the bad Nate Snead.
Yeah.
To me, there's, I'm going to bet on the talent, and what I saw in the first inning was more impressive than the second inning was disappointing. So for me, I'm like, I kind of like what's in the tank for this guy. And Frank Anderson's a Hall of Fame pitching coach for Tennessee, but like, I'm always like, what can a pro pitching coach, if they get in the right fit, bring out of this guy? And I think Snead is a guy. I think he could start. I think he's got a chance to start. And if a fallback being a guy who can let it fly and potentially get up to like 103 on the fastball, like, this is a dude who can be a weapon. And if that's my fallback option, as a guy who can still um, bring it out of the bullpen like that, like, sign me up. If we're talking fourth and fifth round, especially.
Ian, I
I
think
could,
I think I read that he's a 5-pitch reliever. Maybe that's the problem.
I
It could
mean,
be, yeah. Like,
with a guy like that, I could absolutely see him in Kannapolis, firing 2 innings and striking out 5 guys or walking 5 guys, you know? So,
It's
to
like
your
a
point, if you're a
Javier, like
five pitch
Javier. Yeah.
reliever who's
Go ahead.
if you're a 5 pitch reliever who's not dominating, like, why not say, let's focus on these 3 best pitches, and make that your repertoire, and just shove it.
It would always drive me nuts when the White Sox traded for was it Javier Vasquez, and like he's so talented and so
Yeah.
good, but it's like he's like, I have 5 pitches, and then he'd show them to the other team in the first inning. It's like, okay, well, like like what are we doing here?
Yeah, 100%.
James, do you have any more for Mr. Granger here?
No, just
Yeah. I
thanks for joining us, and let everybody know where they can find you.
I have another Midwest guy that I
Okay,
when I whiffed earlier, and couldn't think of one. Joseph Jurwa, out the
Michigan
six
State,
seven
yeah.
lefty starter out of Michigan State. He's a guy that I saw an opening weekend, and he got like 24 swings and misses in that game, uh, which is top tier. Um, and he's had a few of those starts. He was the Big Ten pitcher of the year, like, really good pitcher. He was a guy he got in the portal last summer, and then initially committed to Vanderbilt. Drew his name back, stayed at Michigan State, and won the Big Ten pitcher of the year. I love seeing that, because for all I know, he could have just been another guy at Vanderbilt. But in my mind, he's one of the top draft guys in my area. It was kind of a down year for my area, so like, if someone hands him in as a second or third round pick, like, I could see him, getting bumped up a little more, because the scouts are going to get a little happy or antsy in the draft room when they don't have a guy from this area that they can nominate as a guy to potentially pick for that draft. So I could see him, if a guy saw him on the right day, he looked like a first rounder. So I could see him going in the second round.
Vandy could have used a guy like him this year.
They could have, for sure.
All right. So, on the way out here, Burke, you want to let everybody know where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff on Twitter, mostly player videos and statistical breakdowns, and all that is can be found on Twitter, Burke Granger, and then check us out on D1 Baseball. I greatly appreciate that they pay to send me out to all these great places, and watch the game I love. So help support us, D1Baseball.com.
Yeah, that's living the dream right there. That's good stuff. Yeah, thanks so much for hopping in tonight, Burke. We appreciate it. And I'm gonna go ahead and walk us out here,
Hey,
James.
really quick. So Vince
Yeah.
asked, it's outfielder Chris Young is the answer to that question for Javier Vasquez trade.
Ugh. All right. You
Sadly,
have
I
been
get both of those references and why they are relevant.
sad, sad
I
stuff.
was a big outfielder Chris Young fan at one point in my life.
I mean, we've had hope for a bunch of the guys that have gotten traded out of here, so that is it always ends up like that. All right. You have been watching / listening to the Future Sox podcast. If you are listening to this in podcast form, know that you can find us every Sunday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube and the Purple app. You can also find this podcast along with all of our written content at FutureSox.net. If you are looking for White Sox prospect highlights, you can find them on our X at FutureSox and also here on our YouTube channel. If you love the content and want to support us here at Future Sox, there's a link to our Patreon in our channel description and at FutureSox.net. You can also toss up a super chat on our YouTube stream. Also, don't forget to like this stream and subscribe with notifications so you know when we're going live while helping us in the World Wide Web algorithms. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He is James Fox at JamesFox917. Thank you so much for your time, Burke. We appreciate it. We appreciate all of you in the chat. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for driving the chat. Thanks for hanging out in the community. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.